Hey everybody, hope you're having a phenomenal Monday. I realized that when I put out that June income update, when I was looking at it over the weekend, I screwed up. So I knew that I would mess something up by releasing the video a little bit early, and I did. I told you guys I would not make over $1,000 in passive income, and at the time, I didn't lie to you. But looking back at the portfolio, looking back at some of the transactions that came through my account at the very last few days of June, I recognized that there was a special dividend that Main Street Capital paid out on the 25th, and I did not include that in my calculations. And since I own about 250 to 300 shares of Main Street Capital across my brokerage account and my individual retirement account, that ends up being like 70 or so dollars that I wasn't counting in my June income that is now included. So including that gets me up to about $938 for dividend income for the month of June in 2019, which still isn't my best month. My best month is still September of 2018. But if you include the YouTube income, and this is still missing a day, but been doing phenomenal. You guys have been on fire watching the videos, commenting, and keeping engaged. I'm up to $121 for the month of June, which is still below my max of February of $125. But this in total gets me to over $1,000 or $1,050 for the month of June in total income, and I still have a day or so of income left to come through because obviously it's the last of the month and it's still counting. I'll update this tomorrow, but I wanted to let you guys know that I did break the $1,000 barrier, and yeah, needed to inform you guys of that. Another thing that I want to talk about is, and this is the main reason for the video, is Mr. Money Mustache. Not sure if you guys have ever really followed this guy, but he retired relatively early in his career, I think in his mid-30s, and he started a blog basically about how he did it. And he's a relatively quirky guy, but all in all, I'll leave a link down to his website below. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was how simple it is to actually plan for your retirement. And I think a lot of people always think about how they need to save a specific dollar value every month to be able to reach independence, or they need to save a specific total value of, like, let's say I need to save $3 million just arbitrarily to be able to retire. And I think that people forget how simple it really is. I think it's as simple as almost thinking about what your average expenses are, putting a buffer factor in there, and saying, hey, if I am able to achieve 4 or 5% returns, I can technically only need X amount of dollars. And I think that's exactly what Mr. Money Mustache is talking about here. It's basically saying that your savings rate and what you actually need is a percentage of your take-home pay. So all you really need to figure out is how much you make on a year and how much you actually can live on. For example, say you make $100,000 a year after taxes, but you only really spend $50,000 of that and you save the other half, then in actuality you don't need to plan for living off $100,000 a year. You only need to plan off living for $50,000 a year. Maybe you want to add some buffer in there in case you think that you might have more medical expenses in the future, or you might have a kid or what have you. Then add in a buffer of, say, 10, 20, maybe even 30%, just to make sure that you have that little bit of wiggle room. But I think a lot of people always think like, oh, this is the money that I'm making now. This is what the paycheck says, so I need to match that. And the answer is no. If you're saving $2,000 a month and you retire, technically you don't need to save that $2,000 a month anymore because you're retired. You're trying to basically get to the point where you are basically living and not continuing to save, if that makes sense. And so what Mr. Money Mustache put together was a whole bunch of assumptions of, say, 5% returns after taxes and everything are included. When you retire, you take out a 4% savings rate, so the 4% rule. If those of you are familiar with that, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you're not, leave a comment down below, and we can address it either in the comment section, or if enough of you have enough questions about it, I can make a potential video about that. And basically what he's talking about is, depending on what your salary is and what your percentage is, then you can retire in a specific number of years. So he's able to put together this graph, basically going from a 0% savings rate all the way up to 90% savings rate. And there's another table as well, so if this is a little bit hard to see, then I'll make sure to show you guys something that's a little bit simpler to look at. But obviously if you're saving 0% of your income, you're absolutely never going to be able to retire, right? I mean, that's just a given. But for the example that he has on here, he has 64%. And if you're looking at 64%, and you actually look at the graphic and you go all the way to the left axis where it's the years to retirement, you need 10.5 years of savings to be able to retire. So what this is basically saying is, if you're making $100,000 a year and you are able to live off $36,000 of that and save the other, $64,000, in 10.5 years you'll be able to retire. You'll be able to support that lifestyle of $36,000 a year indefinitely, assuming 5% return and assuming you only take out 4% of the principal per year. What this basically shows is that if you just save 90%, you'll be able to almost a third that, so it'd be under 3 years or so. But one of the things that I think is very peculiar is a lot of times when you ask an advisor or someone in financial management off the cuff about how much should you be saving, I generally hear the term 10 to 15 years is what you should be saving. And this bothers me because if you look at this graphic, and I knew this was true a very, very long time ago, but this graphic really puts it into perspective, is if you're saving 10% of your income and you go over to the left axis, that's over 50 years. And so one of the things that I immediately take away from this is it is good for potentially the consumer's market for you to be only saving 10% of your income, because that means 90% of your income you can use as essentials like housing, cars, what have you. So it allows additional things to be purchased, and it threatens the materialism of America if you're saving more than that, like the 64% range. And even if you're looking at, say, 15%, which is somewhat the savings rate of France here, you're still looking at over 40 years of working in the industry to be able to get to the point where you'd be able to retire comfortably and financially independent. And it gets rather scary. If you think about it, people are saying 10 to 15% of your income, but that's basically setting you up to work for 40, 50 years. And so if you're really smart about what you're actually doing and you're more like China or India, you can really get that under the 30 or so range, which is really nice. And it starts to get really, 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 really good once you get it above 50%, when you are actually able to retire in under 20 years. So it just goes to show you, what potential amount that you need to save of your income to be able to retire in a specific amount of time. And I think that this table coming up is a little bit nicer, but once again, I wanted to reference what the assumptions are for this. You're basically earning 5% returns after inflation and after taxes, and you're living off the 4% withdrawal rule. And if you're curious, you could either look this up on Mr. Money Mustache's website, or if you have enough questions about it, leave it down in the comment section down below, and I'll be able to answer that. But basically what this is saying is you are able to save enough where you're able to retire early. And this is basically the same thing that was above in that bar graph, but in a simple table. So if you're saving 100% of your income, obviously you retire immediately. If you're saving 95%, you can retire in under 2 years. If you're saving 90%, it's under 3 years. But vice versa. If you're only saving 10%, 66 to 50 years. I mean, that's going to be forever. And then 15%, you're going to be working for 43 years. 20%, you're going to be working for 37 years. I mean, it just doesn't look good. But I think people think about this so, like, it's so difficult. And in actuality, it's pretty simple. Like Mr. Money Mustache has up here. It's relatively simple. It's how much you take home each year and how much you actually live on. So you can increase your savings rate in two ways. You can either cut expenses or you can make more money. Luckily, making more money, if you're able to invest more money, that will actually take home your take-home pay every year. So that helps out a little bit. Or you could pick up a side job or this or that. But another thing is how much you can actually live on. And this is kind of what I want to spend a little bit of time on, because I feel like in America we are very materialistic. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy anything, you should be eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or what have you, but I think what you need to recognize is what actually makes you happy, right? I mean, if watching Netflix every day makes you happy and that's what you aspire, you're a cine geek or whatever those are called, like people that really, really enjoy movies, then, go to the movies. Like, that's not really that big of an expense. But what I think a lot of people in America do is they want the house, they want the boat, they want the car, they want the ATV, they want the motorcycles. And it's like, are really all those things making you happy, right? I mean, for me, what makes me happiest about my car is, I like leather seats, I like a decent sound system, I like a sunroof, and I like air conditioning. If I can get that in a car, that's really all that matters to me, because I'm more about what the music quality is, because I'm going to be listening with the windows down, blasting music, than if it's a BMW or a Chevy or a Nissan or what have you. All I really care about is the music and, being able to drive, and it's a smooth driving car. So I don't need to necessarily spend $1,000 a month to buy that. In fact, people always ask me, they're like, when are you going to get a new truck? I have a 2009 truck, and I'm like, I don't know, this one drives perfectly fine. Like, why would I get a different one? But I think it's just that mindset of Americans to always want something bigger, better. And I think what we really need to do is hunker down and realize the things that either make us happy or the things that are going to lead us to doing something that makes us happy, like retiring early or something along those lines, and really stick to that. Otherwise, you're going to spread yourself too thin, either financially or mentally, and just crack, right? And I'll get off my soapbox, but I think that is a huge proponent into a lot of the things that I see in my parents' generation and also my generation. You see these folks driving around, $80,000 BMWs, living in, $1 million homes, and it's like, are you ever going to be able to retire? Like, I'm worried about you. Like, and if that's what you want to do and you don't ever want to quit working, then that's perfectly fine. But I feel like those people that do that, they also, in the back of their minds, when they hear people talking about, oh, I'm retired or this or that, they're like, oh, why can't I retire? And I think it's just their mentality and their mindset that's allowing them to keep going down the wrong path. But anyway, really cool article. I'll put it down in the description below. But I hope this video finds you well. Hope it was thought-provoking and my soapbox rant wasn't too awful. And would love to hear what you guys think down below. And that's relatively it. I'll talk to you guys soon, and I'll see you on the next video.